My name is Ben Wisbey and I'm the Managing Director of a company called FitSense. So I'm an exercise physiologist who graduated from the Uni of Canberra in the year 2000. My background is working as both a sports scientist and an exercise physiologist, and more recently in a management role, delivering programs and managing staff. So what I wanted to go through today is some of the key things we like to look for in our industry and some of the key experiences that are important in our industry. So the most important thing I found in my early stage of my career was trying to gain experience. Being in a sports role is very competitive and very difficult to get in the door to gain that initial experience, and additionally there's not a whole lot of paid experience. So if you are dedicated to working in sport, then you need to be willing to make a lot of sacrifices in the early part of your career and dedicate weekends, long hours, and really be thorough in what you're trying to achieve in that part of your career. However, I found that was definitely the best way to learn, to be able to learn to apply the theoretical knowledge that was gained through university into a practical setting. I guess in terms of dealing with various clients, both within sport and other areas of industry, I found that it's really important to be able to relate to people at their own level. So being able to have a rapport with the individual, whether it be in an athletic environment where you're trying to help an individual to maximise their performance, or whether it be from a more health and wellness point of view where you're trying to create a relationship and associate with someone to help them improve their situation. So in terms of being able to actually do that, I think it's being able to communicate at a level that with the clients or the individuals that you're working with, being able to dress like they dress, be able to really relate at their level, as opposed to trying to look up or look down to them depending at what level you're at. So whether that be in a sporting situation where you're out there in a tracksuit having a bit of a relaxing and informal chat, or whether that be in a corporate environment, say doing corporate wellness programs, being able to dress formally and relate to them in a formal means. I think it's also important to be able to relate to all of your endeavours in a way that also has a common sense approach. So being able to approach things in a way that you can make good decisions on the spot and not be reliant on necessarily systems or rules. So policies are very important to have in place and follow, which I'll discuss in a moment. But in addition to that, it's also very important to be able to put clients and people you're dealing with at ease and make them feel comfortable just with your level of knowledge and decisions you can make on the spot. However, sitting behind that is also the policies, which are very important. So especially in areas such as my background in exercise physiology, where you're potentially dealing with health or medical or blood-related aspects. So it's very important to have strict protocols, follow policies, whether that be around handling certain aspects of equipment, whether it be in terms of protocols and stages, or whether it be in terms of key things that you need to deliver to the individuals that you're working with. So being able to cover off on those bases is really crucial, but being able to do it in a way that is quite relaxed and confident is equally important. So dealing with individuals, you don't necessarily want to be caught up in looking as though you're very structured in what you do. You want to be able to follow those key guidelines in a very relaxed manner so that the people you're dealing with are also relaxed. In terms of being successful in the industry, I think the biggest challenge is, as I mentioned before, it's a very competitive industry, especially when it's related to sport. It seems very glamorous and everyone wants to be involved. However, there's a lot of intelligent people working in the industry and there's not necessarily a lot of money or funding for positions. So you do need to have a lot of experience, have a high level of knowledge, and probably specialise in an area that's going to set you aside from others. It's also worth being aware that sport isn't really all of the glamour that it cracks up to be. Sure, at times you might get to meet a professional athlete or something that's extremely exciting, but a large portion of the time is really just spent doing a normal job that happens to relate to sport. So in my own instance, a lot of that time involves, for example, sitting behind a desk looking at numbers on a computer that just happen to be captured in sport. So I think it's really important to have a realistic perception of what the roles are within your industry, and how that sometimes they're far more hard work than they are sexy. Most industry bodies will provide a code of ethics which are very important to follow, and similar to policies and procedures like I mentioned before, it's important to follow those strictly. But it's also important to put your take on that and approach things in a way that you would like to be approached if you're dealing with other individuals, or if you're working within a business, to approach that business as though it was your own. So to be able to make decisions as though it was dependent on you. So as an employer in my situation, that's what I find most valuable, is an employee who's going to make a decision that's in the best outcomes of the business and also the clients that we're dealing with, and not necessarily just following a set structure because that was written down, or trying to get their maximum personal gain from it. So it's very important in that regard to have both that combination of practices, policies, but then also being able to put that into practical terms. And that includes everything from dress codes right through to awareness with money, awareness with clients, dealing with people. And I guess it's, in any industry there's a large aspect of customer service. So regardless of that be, whether in sport or, in a more administrative role, then being able to deal with people is very important. So once again, having a relaxed manner, but really trying to help the individual or the client achieve what they're wanting to achieve from the relationship. So I think that's a real key goal that we're trying to get across in all deliverables of any type of business, but especially when it comes to fitness, health and wellness, because we're dealing with individuals who are obviously there for a very personal aspect, and therefore being able to try and assist them as much as possible. And that assistance means not only providing advice, but respecting the information they give to you and any information you may have about them. So it's something that comes up for us a lot, whether it be related to sport or the health industry, is being able to have strict privacy and confidentiality policies. And once again, it's fine to have those policies, but it's really common sense that the same as you wouldn't like somebody to talk about your health issues, then our clients don't want their health issues made public either. So it's important to be able to comfort them so that they can become open and allow you to assist them to the maximum level, but also then be able to follow that to the letter to ensure that that's thoroughly conducted. Getting a start in a lot of competitive industries can be a real challenge. In the area of sports science, for example, I know a number of employers that not only don't take on people who are after work experience in a voluntary capacity initially, but will actually require that person to approach them several times, lodge a resume and have interviews just to get voluntary work experience. So I think that that's very important. First up is that you need to continually be persistent to try and achieve the experience and the outcomes that you want. And if you really are dedicated to your goal, then really stick to that goal and really look at ways to achieve or get that initial experience. Once you're in the door, then it's a matter of ideally learning as much as you possibly can and then being patient with things. So because, once again, it is a competitive field and there's a lot of intelligent people in the area, then trying to specialise in something and potentially sticking at that even when it may not have any short-term benefit for you or the people that you're working with. And I guess one such example of that in my case has been working on some individual research for about 10 or 12 years, and it actually took us 12 years to get any financial return from that. But in the long run, that allowed it to be us to be a specialist in that particular area. So sometimes patience and hard work is really the only way of getting that outcome. From an experience point of view, working in any area of sport, then quite often it's who you know. So getting that initial foot in the door becomes really crucial to developing networks and relationships so that it can lead to future opportunities down the line. And quite often it's very easy to turn away initially because the door might be shut a couple of times, but ultimately if you are dedicated to it, then you have to keep going back. And as I said, voluntary work is probably the ideal starting point. It's not what is the ideal way of heading out of university from a financial point of view, but it's definitely something that I know myself and most of my colleagues have done, straight out of university, or even in the last year or two of university, just to get a foot in the door initially. In terms of what is valuable from an industry point of view, when we're talking with sport or the fitness industry, then the most valued thing is being able to care for those people who you're trying to assist. So there's not a whole lot of glamour or reward behind helping an athlete win a race or win a premiership, or alternatively to help an individual lose weight or improve their health. So it's not you who gets the personal reward. So from that point of view, you really need to be dedicated to helping somebody else who is going to get the accolades for the work that you've put in. And you need to be willing to sacrifice a lot of time to do so. So once again, especially in the sporting field, athletes don't often train 9 to 5. It's generally out of hours, competition on the weekend, and it's a full-on job for them, and it becomes their life and their passion, and therefore you need to be able to respect that and be able to act in much the same way, so that you're there when they need you to be able to assist. And that's not a whole lot different to a health and fitness industry, whereby you might be dealing with individuals who work all day and therefore are trying to improve their life outside of work hours, but once again may be really dedicated to it, and you're there to try and assist them when they have the time to do so. Being honest is something that's also very valuable. So especially in a sports point of view, then there's a lot of myths and quick fixes that are out there and can be discussed in the media, and while that might get you some short-term benefits and discussions with clients or colleagues, ultimately it's best to have a good, honest approach to things, and that means being able to give them authentic information when they need it. And then they're going to learn to respect you more for your long-term beliefs, and therefore be able to become reliant on you. In summary, I'd suggest that the main things to be aware of when dealing with the sport and fitness industry is that there's not a whole lot of jobs out there, and they are competitive, and they're potentially not as glamorous as what you may think they are before you get into them. So once again, having experience and work experience is not only valuable from a career point of view, but can be really valuable in terms of ensuring that you're heading into the right industry and the right path. So that would be the key thing that I'd suggest in the short term that you try and achieve if you're dedicated to working in the industry, and beyond that, really trying to stick with it long term. So really, if you find that that is what you want to do, then develop a path and really dedicate as much time as possible to gaining as much experience as possible, while also working out the administrative or scientific side, which is understanding the requirements of your industry from a protocol, policy and ethical point of view.